zealous about these causes. And it's good. I mean, there's a fire in their belly about the cause. So I have causes too, but they come out in a different way. I think about people who are left alone in nursing homes, or retirement homes, and just abandoned, or just, what's the word, discarded. Thank you so much. I feel like the lady in that movie last night, she couldn't remember words. Discarded. So I said, all right, I'm going to write a poem, but I'm not going to take the direct cause. I'm going to take it another way and still try to say the same thing. This is called sock value. Every 22 minutes in America, another sock loses its mate. Somewhere between wash and dry, somewhere between the last cool down and first heated rotation tumble, another linen, another nylon, suffers loss in the game, gets washed away in the tide. Toe and soulmates separated forever. From one-size synthetics to high-heeled mohairs, from heavy ply yarns to lightweight cyclist olefins, nothing can cushion the impact of this calamity. I lived with Fred's athlete's feet for 2 years, but being alone like this is the worst. Says a solo white anklet sock. Even cottons and wools, accustomed to absorbing moisture, find it difficult to absorb the loss of their hosiery better halves. I lost 50% of my support system, size a single red spandex. I don't know if I can walk through this alone. A shrink-resistant stretch fiber feels especially useless. I stayed up on Larry's leg and never once fell down. I hugged those legs and feet through 2 loveless marriages. Now what? Mr. Lee, the 50-something Indonesian gentleman who runs this particular laundromat, is not unsympathetic to the plight of the cross-section of abandoned footwear in front of him. I wish there was a government no sock left behind policy, but there is none. Mr. Lee knows something about being displaced. He fled his country 12 years ago for political reasons, leaving a wife, teenage son, and 9-year-old daughter behind. His efforts to bring them to this country remain knee-high deep in bribe and bureaucracy snafus. I missed him so much, he says. However, for business reasons, Mr. Lee still maintains a 6-day discard policy on everything in the adopt-a-sock basket. Hi, Nike, they can't discard me in 6 days. Even the Humane Society down the street has a policy of holding lost pets for 7 to 10 days, a gray anklet says. But I sock it at Nike. Solo leg warmer yells. We're not dogs or cats. We're socks. People don't bond with polyester. They think we're just inert atoms with no feelings. But they're wrong. They're so wrong. A young woman in her 20s now enters the laundromat. She asks Mr. Lee, did you find a thermal sock? Sure enough, the hollow core thermalite is found and is immediately claimed. The winter ones usually find a home, size a quarter top. And to think I once complained about being used as a puppet, says a solid black anti-static. I am barely holding on by a thread, shares a slipper sock. Then leave it to the frayed female, over-the-knee, ultra-sheer light support, to come up with an over-the-top, life-affirming word on the last day. Hey, I don't know about you guys, but I've got no regrets. The run of my hose testifies that I finished the race. Hey, ultra sheer, just knock my socks off, a wool mid-calf yells. They think we're just inert atoms with no feelings. But they're wrong. They're so wrong. Oh, here's the ethnic cleansing.
Yay!
I'll tell you. After I read this poem, I'll tell you what their response was. Now here's where a very serious group of poets didn't train Mortify into humor. But I took a risk with it anyway. I don't think we write to be popular or even to be liked. Sometimes you have to irritate to get another result. I mean, everybody wants to be liked. Still, I'm in the Rite Aid drugstore in Philadelphia. What a shock to discover that ethnic cleansing is out in the open here. There's a sign in aisle 2 that actually reads, Polish remover. Polonophobia, right here in Philadelphia. The city of brotherly love. Is there a pierogi pogrom going on? This is nothing more than a revival of the 18th century Prussian suppression of Polish people. Why, there's even a mall not far from here called the King of Prussia Mall. Is the King of Prussia Mall secretly a labor camp for Polish people? Are there massacres taking place in the food court? Are they deporting Polish people to New Jersey? What we have here is the continuing of the legacy of Frederick the Great. He compared the Poles to Iroquois of Canada. But then again, Frederick's genitalia was harmed by a cruel surgical operation to save his life from an unnamed venereal disease. Perhaps it was a Polish surgeon who wounded him. You know what? Maybe it's all just a language problem. After all, the Polish verb to be is a word that's pronounced exactly like bitch in English. For instance, if I say, maze bitch, it means it can be, or yes, that's okay. But have translated into English means it could be a bitch. That could result in some misunderstanding. So when I complained to the young black cashier about the Polish remover sign and that Rite Aid was sending a wrong message to the world, she gave me a look of bewildered contempt and said, Polish remover? That's Polish remover. Oh, I said, oh, yeah, right, I was just making a joke, you know, like they say in Polish, Mose, bitch. What'd you call me? At that moment, all I could imagine was being beaten to death by 10 Rite Aid employees and dying in the diuretics aisle, humming Chopin's third movement of his funeral march, Sonata No. 2. So I'm just saying, you can see humor all around you. Now, I gave you a poem that I want us just to go around and read one line at a time. You just got the second part?
No, it's the end. It's under the part.
Sorry? Oh, yeah. Somewhere in there. The things I've heard. Now, here's a serious poem. I want to just give you an example of how you can write a serious poem and just throw one line or phrase of humor into it just to give it a little bit of a different seasoning and still not take away from the essence, but maybe just give it a little bit of a flavor. So why don't we go around in circles, each person take one line until we run out of lines. Do you want to start it? Julianza, start it, please.
Okay.
And be sure to listen to what the previous person has said, so you can just pick it up.
I've heard of deaf people suddenly hearing, and hearing people gradually going deaf.
I've heard of pedicures that lasted longer than 2 hours, and people with 6 toes. Toenails.
I've heard of people who wanted to live and die, and people who wanted to die jumped off buildings, took pills, and lived.
I've heard of famous people being unhappy and obscure. People wanting to be famous.
I heard that you loved me, but didn't think I loved you.
I've heard of people talking about the end of the world and couples planning to have more children.
I have heard of people coming back from a near-death experience and others still searching for a near-life experience.
Oh, the things I've heard.
I've heard how letters that needed to be written were never sent, and letters that hurt and wounded people arrived right on time.
I've heard things spoken behind my back and things I've told myself in the mirror.
I've heard that your median income is $76,700, but you don't feel anyone values you.
I have heard of nations planning to make war, and how peace is not that hard to find once you know where to look for it.
I've heard of relationships going sour and people staying sweet even after being treated badly.
I've heard of boxing matches being fixed and how an overcooked duck can never be fixed.
I've heard of politicians who never keep their promises and people who keep their vows even when it hurts. Could you take it?
I've heard of comedians who are depressed and depressed people who wish they could stand up and who wish they could do stand-up comedy.
I've heard that your medication doesn't work anymore and your doctor secretly thinks nothing but a miracle will heal you.
I've heard of prayers that were answered and prayers that never had a prayer of being answered.
How about the left? Can you pick it up?
All these things I've heard and thousands more.
I heard that you loved me, but didn't think I loved you.
I'm sorry. I've never been a very good listener.
So here's a deep feeling poem, but where's the fun line? Where do you see the fun line?
In the oppositions, the polarity.
No, there's a line there. That's funny.
The funny?
Yeah. The overcooked duck. The overcooked duck can't be fixed. And I felt that was important to put that in there, just to balance the piece, to give it a little humor. All right, maybe it's time to write again. What's the time?
It is
11:30.
Doing good.
11:30.
11:30. We're calling it at 11:30.
What's that?
We're going to call it at 11:30. We've got 3 different times.
Oh, but it's not over, is it?
It's an average. Oh, it's not over.
Oh, it's not over.
No. It's over when you